Hi guys, this is Elizabeth with Art, and today I'm back with another video. So what I'm doing today is going to be a little bit different than what I usually do. I'm usually doing speed paints and videos of my drawing process, but today I actually want to share some tips with you guys that I wish I would have known when I was a beginner digital artist. So for those of you that don't know, I started out drawing when I was 14. I'm completely self-taught. Everything I know was learned from scrolling Google and watching videos on YouTube. So I really didn't know a whole lot when I started. I started out with pens and paper, but I quickly moved over to digital art um, on this app that I'm using now. It's called Ibispaint X, which is a free app that you can find on most any Apple or Android device. So if you're a beginner artist, I highly recommend this app. So the first tip I want to share with you guys today is utilize your many digital tools. So no matter what, like we are talking about before, no matter what software you have, you really need to make sure you know everything about your software. When I first started drawing, I only really used about two pens. This pen, the soft dip pen, and the hard dip pen right here. And so I used this one for line art because it was really good for getting those fine details, and I still use it a lot today. And then I use the soft one more for coloring and for shading, and that's really all that I used. And while they're two good pens that I still use pretty often in most everything I do, I didn't broaden my scopes because I really didn't know how much of anything worked, and I just figured, hey, here are two basic simple pens that just are pretty good for doing most anything, and so why would I need to kind of go out of my way to do anything else? I mean, I was comfortable basically. So it wasn't until I saw a video where other people who had this app were using a different brushes and pens that I think, hey, maybe I should look into some of these. So some of my other favorites that I still use, that I use more often now, is the Fade pen, this one here, and it's really good for like shading, especially when you put it on a lower opacity. But as you can see, like, you mixing to see how this is just very light, and then just like mixing other colors, they just look really nice, and I love the way this pen works for coloring and shading and all sorts of stuff like that. Another pen that I like to use is I use the bleed dip pen for some things. Especially I'd like to get into some comic work and stuff similar to that, and so this is very good for comic drawing and for doing little details, especially if you're like into anime or manga. These are very good for that, for drawing details. Another pen that I use is the number one pencil. So there's several different pencils and they're graded by numbers. But this pencil is just, I also find it to be really good for giving textured line art. I also like to use it for drawing and details, and it's good for many different things. Even if it's just like literally adding texture, it's just a really good brush that can be used, and it's very, very versatile. But these were all brushes I had to kind of look and test for. You know, you don't just usually see it just scrolling through here, and you have to really play with them and stuff. And I'm sure a lot of software has all different ones. This app is particularly good because there's, as you can see, there's like calligraphy. So if you like to write words, see, like that, you can do that. They have other pens similar to that. There's blurring markers, lots of different marker textures, so many. It reminds me of Procreate, which is really nice because it's hard to find something that compares to Procreate. Yeah, different alcohol markers, see, like that. Then there's markers like this watercolor. There's so many different watercolor ones, and so they try and mimic the way things look in real life. So you can make designs based off of, you know, try and do more realistic things. They're really great for blending. That's what I found. Watercolor brushes are really good for that. yeah, you can see all these different textures of watercolor. And then there's brushes that mimic the way like acrylic paint looks, for instance, like this one, which sometimes it's not as realistic, but I just still really love the way it turns out, especially when you mix it with different colors, and I love those. And in this app, they got hair brushes, you see here, more blurring, different like marker brushes with different heads on it. So for instance, here's like a flat brush, like this, you can look streaky, which a lot of people use that for hair. And then they have other brushes, charcoal, soft pastels, chalk. They have everything you could think of, and they're always adding new ones. So yeah, that was tip number 1. Utilize your many digital tools. Okay, so the second tip I have for you guys is don't shade with just a darker version of the color you have been coloring with, or shade with black. So there's a lot to unload there, but let's just, here, I want to like show it to you guys what I'm talking about. So let's just draw something real quick here. Okay, I'm going to draw this little turtle, and I want to show you guys what I mean by this. And if you're already a little more of an advanced artist and you're hearing me say this, you probably understand. But this is something I had to learn the hard way, and it's still something I do occasionally because number 1, I'm probably being lazy, and number 2, it's just ultimately for me it all comes down to laziness before it really came down to just like ignorance, not really knowing. And a lot of stuff I'm telling you guys, I didn't learn it overnight. It wasn't easy. I had to go out and look for it, and I had to have sometimes people who weren't even like artists, like even family members, to tell me, hey, have you tried like shading with this color, or have you tried doing this in your drawing? And at first be like, hey, I'm the one who knows what I'm talking about, right? But no. It's one of the tips I don't like officially have on my list here, but something I want to stress as I go throughout this video is it's okay to take criticism. You absolutely should. And there's a difference between people criticizing and people giving constructive criticism that's going to make you better for the future. Okay, so now that I've colored my little turtle, so we're going to shade him, and no matter what, you're probably very familiar. So here's what normally you probably do. You'd probably take a darker green, so you got this color green, and then you have this color. It's just a slightly darker, a little bit more shaded version of before, and you just go out here, and you just shade like you normally would, and you probably don't even think, hey, is there a better way I could be shading right now? I certainly did not think that, and even now that I do know, now it's a little more like, technically I could be putting in the work and doing it a little bit better, but so yeah, this looks okay. I mean, it's fine. Obviously this isn't a finished drawing with ink or any of that, but it looks like a decent turtle. But we could take it a step farther and not use this. You can add a lot of depth when you don't just use a darker shade. So for instance, you might still be using green here. So see, if you look at the color thing over here, you have a much lighter green next to like this olive color, and you don't want to overdo it. But so you have what's called in art, you have your hots and your colds, and so like here on the turtle's neck, you can see this would be an example of where it's going to be like really warm color, and you wouldn't necessarily do as much shading here as you would with the other. Here you can use the blur tool a little bit to kind of even it out, and obviously you would do shading and just kind of blend all of this nicely together. Yeah, back to my laziness here, I'm probably not going to go ahead and do this whole thing for you guys, but just so you can see, there's more to it that goes in than just doing a darker shade of green or a lighter shade of green. And it's not that you don't do that, but you need to open your eyes to the fact that there's some better ways. And especially when you're working with like purples, like something I didn't even try or do until recently in an actual video I have posted here on my channel, is I didn't know you could shade purple with red and act likewise. So that's something I've been doing more often, and I've seen a lot more depth, a lot more, lighting and stuff, and it looks so much better. But I didn't know that or do that until I learned it. So this is why it's a tip I really want to share with you guys, because if I would have known it earlier on, I probably would have had better progress earlier on in my drawings. So yeah, this is a really bad sketch, but I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say here. And maybe I'll do a video on this more in depth later down the line. In the comments below, if this is something you want to learn more about, I'll definitely go more in depth and help you guys out with that, so just let me know. So that's all the tips I have for you today. Stay tuned, I'll have a second video coming out with more tips I wish I knew when I was a beginner digital artist. If you'd like to support me in this channel, please subscribe and check out some more of my videos. Please stay tuned. Thanks, bye.